The sky above the city was gray, heavy with tension. Outside the towering office of Elena Winters, the air seemed electric. Employees whispered nervously, and security guards shifted uncomfortably, sensing that something monumental was about to happen. At the center of it all, he stood. Mark. His face pale, hands trembling, eyes fixed on the woman who had once been his world. Elena stepped out from the glass doors, heels clicking on the marble floor. Every movement is deliberate. Every step is calm. She radiated power, control, and confidence. A woman who had rebuilt herself from betrayal and pain. Mark's voice broke the silence. Please, I made a mistake. The words hung in the air like smoke. For a moment, the world paused. Employees went silent. Even the security guards seemed to hold their breath. Before we go deeper into this case, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Elena didn't flinch. Her eyes, calm and unyielding, scanned the man who had once been everything to her. Memories flashed. Laughter, dreams, quiet nights they had shared, and then betrayal. She took a deliberate step forward. Mark, 2 years ago, you made your choice. Now you're here. Why? Mark reached out instinctively, desperation and regret in every motion. I realized too late what I lost. Please, Elena, I can fix this. Elena didn't answer. Not yet. She let him feel the weight of his mistakes. Then, as he opened his mouth to speak again, her mind drifted. Back to the beginning. 2 years earlier. Elena Winters was 26, living in a modest apartment on the east side of the city. The furniture was simple, the walls bare, but the space was filled with warmth. She had married Mark 3 years ago, a man with dreams bigger than their means, and a smile that made her believe in forever. Mornings were rushed, but comforting. Elena cooked breakfast while Mark reviewed his notes, occasionally stealing a glance at her with a soft, grateful smile. They were poor, yes, but rich in ambition, in hope, and in love. Evenings were harder. Elena worked late nights at a small firm while Mark chased his startup dreams. She often skipped meals, stayed awake sending him encouraging messages, and spent her weekends finding ways to help him succeed. She gave her all, quietly suppressing her own ambitions, driven by loyalty and love. But cracks were subtle, almost invisible. Mark's eyes sometimes lingered too long on colleagues he envied. Compliments, once effortless, now carried subtle expectations. Elena noticed, but trusted in their bond. She believed love would bridge any distance. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. Despite the small insecurities, life had a rhythm. They laughed, argued playfully, and held each other close during nights when money was tight, but hope was abundant. One night, after Mark stayed late again, Elena sat alone on the couch, a cup of tea warming her hands. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. She whispered to herself, "What if I'm strong enough to handle whatever comes? What if love is not enough?" Elena didn't know it yet, but the cracks she felt were the first hints of a storm that would change everything. Her love, loyalty, and sacrifices would soon be tested, in ways she could never imagine. Months passed, and the rhythm of Elena and Mark's life began to subtly change. Mark, once attentive and warm, grew distant. The late nights at work became longer, the phone calls more secretive. Elena felt it before she saw it, a chill, an unease that settled in her chest. Mark had met someone new, Vanessa. She was everything Elena wasn't, confident, wealthy, poised, and alluring. At first, it was just a series of small lies, excuses about work, client meetings, or networking dinners. But soon, the stories became tangled, the explanations hollow. Elena noticed the subtle shifts. His laughter didn't reach his eyes anymore. The warmth she once knew was replaced by avoidance and subtle irritation. She asked questions, carefully, gently, hoping to bridge the growing gap. But Mark's answers were clipped, defensive, and occasionally dismissive. One night, Elena found herself staring at her reflection in the kitchen window, tea growing cold in her hands. She whispered to herself, "What's happening to him? What's happening to us?" The tension between them thickened over weeks. Mark started checking his phone obsessively, leaving the apartment abruptly for so-called business trips. Elena's gut twisted every time she noticed his hurried movements, his sudden silences, and the way he avoided eye contact. If you were in Elena's shoes, noticing the man you trust slipping away, how would you react? Share your thoughts in the comments. One Friday evening, Mark announced he had to leave for a last-minute conference out of town. Elena nodded, suppressing her unease. Something about his tone set her instincts on fire, but she held her peace. She didn't know yet that the conference was an elaborate cover for a growing betrayal. Vanessa's influence became evident in small ways. Mark's wardrobe changed subtly. His conversations began to echo her style, her tastes. Elena, ever loyal, tried to reach him, to connect. But her words fell on ears too distracted by deception. Mark returned from one trip, and Elena noticed his cologne, different, luxurious, unmistakably foreign. It wasn't the scent she recognized. It belonged to someone else. Her heart sank, and the first pangs of suspicion turned into a gnawing certainty. The final thread holding her marriage together seemed fragile. She loved him, yes, but love was no longer enough to bridge the growing void. The revelation came on a night meant to celebrate Mark's career milestone. Elena had dressed carefully, a simple but elegant gown, her hair pinned up neatly. They arrived at the event together, appearing as the happy couple the city had come to admire. Then, Vanessa appeared. All sharp smiles and designer elegance, she walked toward them with a purposeful stride. Mark stiffened, and Elena noticed immediately. The whispers began before the first insult was uttered. Vanessa approached, her voice dripping with calculated charm. "Elena, you've been such a good placeholder. It's almost cute." Elena froze. The words hit like a cold blade. Around them, the crowd sensed the tension, the invisible line Mark had crossed. He didn't defend her. He barely met her eyes. Her humiliation was complete, not just in front of Mark, but in front of everyone around them. Her heart thumped painfully as Vanessa and Mark exchanged quiet, intimate words, invisible to the crowd, but glaringly clear to Elena. Back home, the confrontation continued. Mark tried to explain, tried to justify, but his excuses were thin, fragile, and unconvincing. Elena, for the first time, realized that the man she had devoted herself to, sacrificed for, and trusted completely, had abandoned all loyalty. The divorce papers arrived days later. Elena signed quietly, her hands steady, her mind a storm of pain, betrayal, and disbelief. The apartment felt hollow without Mark's presence, and yet, the silence was almost comforting, a release from the ongoing deception. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you. Elena's new apartment was small, far from the comfort and memories of the life she had shared with Mark. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a strange clarity. The quiet forced her to face the raw truth. She had been betrayed by someone she trusted completely. Days blurred into nights. She cried in the darkness, wondering how the man she had given everything to could abandon her so easily. Financial pressure made everything harder. Her savings were limited, freelance work barely enough to cover rent and groceries. Friends reached out sometimes. Family offered gentle concern, some hinting, "You should have seen the signs." Elena absorbed it all with quiet resilience, refusing to let doubts shape her choices. Even in despair, sparks of determination emerged. Late at night, she read books on business, watched tutorials, and scribbled ideas in a notebook. Every page became a blueprint to reclaim the life stolen from her. She reminded herself, "This is not the end. I will rise." Have you ever felt like Elena here, starting over after being betrayed by someone you trusted? I'd love to hear your story. Share it below. The struggle was relentless. She questioned herself, doubted her strength, but each morning she awoke determined, refusing to let shadows of the past define her future. Slowly, she took small steps, A freelance project here, a networking call there. Each minor victory built her confidence. Seasons shifted, and Elena emerged stronger, tempered by hardship, ready to reclaim not just her life, but her dignity. The turning point came on a crisp morning at a local business seminar. Clutching her notebook, Elena was nervous but driven. She introduced herself, pitched ideas, and absorbed every insight. Her first venture was modest, a small online store selling handmade items. The initial weeks were brutal, slow orders, mistakes, and financial strain. Setbacks came. An investor pulled out, a shipment arrived damaged, negative reviews appeared. Yet with each failure, she learned. She adapted, sought guidance, refined her vision. Slowly, her persistence paid off. Orders increased, her brand gained recognition, and confidence blossomed. 2 years of dedication transformed Elena. From the quiet, loyal wife, she became a powerhouse entrepreneur, confident, respected, fiercely independent. Her office reflected her resilience. Framed articles, awards, and photographs of triumphs. If you were watching Elena's journey from nothing to power, what would you say inspired you the most? Let me know in the comments. Despite her success, Elena never forgot the past. Betrayal and hardship had not weakened her. They forged her strength. And then, just as her life's horizon widened, she received a call that would test her foundation. Mark. Her heart didn't race with fear or longing. It only steeled with clarity. 2 years had passed. She had transformed. Now she was ready to face the man who had underestimated her, not as a victim, but as a force he could no longer ignore. 2 years had passed since that painful night Elena signed the divorce papers. Her small apartment was a memory. Her modest online store had grown into a flourishing business empire. Elena sat in her sleek, glass-walled office, reviewing quarterly reports. Every achievement, every award on the wall, was a testament to her resilience, her hard work, and her refusal to be underestimated. Meanwhile, Mark's life had crumbled. The investments he had boasted about went sour, his career stalled, and the glamorous world he once believed in had turned cold and unwelcoming. Pride had blinded him, and now regret gnawed at every moment of his waking hours. And then he saw her. Elena, calm, confident, radiant, walking through the lobby of her office building. He froze, the weight of his past mistakes pressing down on him. Mark's voice wavered as he approached. Elena, please. Elena paused at the top of the stairs, her expression unreadable. She didn't move forward. She let him feel the gravity of what he had lost. At this moment, standing where Mark is, would you beg for forgiveness if you had hurt someone like Elena? Share honestly below. Mark reached out, desperate, his words frantic. I made a mistake. I can fix this. Please, just give me a chance. Elena's eyes locked onto his. She saw the same man she had loved, the man who had betrayed her, and the man who now realized too late what he had lost. But she didn't see fear in her own heart, only clarity. She stepped down slowly, her heels clicking against the marble floor, a sound that seemed to echo in the empty lobby. Mark, she said, her voice calm but commanding. Do you really think 2 years of betrayal and deceit can be erased with words? Mark faltered, his confidence shattered. For the first time, he felt powerless. He realized she had grown, evolved, and become someone he could no longer control or influence. Elena's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with his desperation. She allowed him a moment to absorb the consequences of his choices. Every whispered apology, every plea for forgiveness fell short. She had already moved beyond the hurt. Mark fell to his knees, defeated, the weight of his mistakes pressing him down. Elena, please. I beg you, he said, voice breaking. Elena looked down at him, composed and serene. She had no intention of reliving the pain he had caused. She spoke slowly, deliberately, each word striking like a hammer against his pride. You didn't lose me because I was poor. You lost me because you underestimated me. Mark's face went pale. The realization hit him harder than any punishment could. Elena's strength, her resilience, and her success were proof that he had made the gravest mistake of his life. Employees in the lobby watched silently. Whispers filled the air, a mixture of awe and respect. Elena turned and walked past him, each step measured, a demonstration of power reclaimed. Mark remained kneeling, shattered by the consequences of underestimating her. Elena returned to her office, a quiet smile playing at the corner of her lips. She didn't need his apology. She had everything she had ever wanted: independence, respect, and self-worth. Thank you for following Elena's journey. If this story touched you, give this video a like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Underestimated Saga. Share your reflections on what you learned from Elena's journey. I read every single comment. Her story was one of betrayal, resilience, and ultimate triumph. Through heartbreak and hardship, she had learned that strength comes not from the people who fail you, but from the choices you make to rise above. The lesson is clear. No one can define your worth except you, and those who underestimate you will always see your true power too late.